So, welcome to the Energy On Show. And here, everything revolves around your life energy because your energy is the key to your dream life. I'm Cornelia Kavam, and today I have an extraordinary guest for an interview, and this is Derek Loudermilk. And I met Derek, I think half a year ago, and I'm really kind of fascinated by what he is doing. And from my perspective, he's kind of really a multi-dimensional person. Yeah, I have never ever met somebody like you. You are doing so many things, and you're kind of what I really like most of you is that you're so open and so interested in learning new things and achieving new skills, every day, and that's really fascinating. And so for all those who don't know you that well, you call yourself a professional adventurer, which I think is really just such a cool description. And because you traveled like 40 countries, you lived in them, part of them with your family, you're a digital nomad. You worked all over the world. Wow, that sounds really cool. And you're also, really deep diving in the quantum field. You're really an expert there, and you're a quantum business coach, and also kind of a best-selling author for the Super Connector, which I really love. And you run also the Derek Loudermilk show, and they are up to 382 episodes right now, or even more, right? I hope I didn't miss the newest one. So welcome, Derek, and I'm so grateful you're here, really excited. And today's topic, in a way, will be telepathy. So welcome, Derek.
Well, Cornelia, thank you for having me. Great to see you again. I always enjoy talking with you, and what a wonderful introduction. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And the idea of speaking about telepathy, because of course, if you look at it from the quantum perspective, everything is energy. So also our thoughts and our emotions are energy, and that's why telepathy is really, communicating in a way with energy. And I'm really fascinated by it. And I think everybody already experienced it, but most of the time we are not so, 100% aware of it. It's telepathy. And, in a way, telepathy is you communicating between two people, like, or even like regarding the feelings and the minds, without using the five senses, the five human senses, like tasting, smelling, and touching, and seeing or viewing, and or hearing. And I think it's really fascinating. And you told me that you're just running a course on telepathy with together with Dieter Young, and so I really would love to hear more about it. Why did you start this course? Can you share with us?
Yeah, this is really exciting, and we're just kind of wrapping up our first run through. We trained 28 people in telepathy, and they've all experienced telepathy, which, I mean, we knew beforehand. Everyone has access to telepathy. It's a natural human, it's, part of who we are, but it's so cool to see people experience it for the first time, because and it can be very simple things that you experience at first. It's something that, as you train, you can get better at. But people, right, the very first day, we just had like, here's a picture of Michael Jackson, and here's a picture of Michael Jackson. It's like a very dynamic picture. He's, wearing black and white with a red background, and people would just write down what they perceived. But they're perceiving, right, the color, is it a man or is it a woman? What is there action going on in the photograph? Is there, how's this person feeling? What is their role in the world? How's their health? You're perceiving all different kinds of things, some of which are the five senses, right? What does it look like? What does it smell like where he is? So that's actually kind of a good way of training, is like, whenever you enter a room, just kind of sensing what the room feels like. What is it? What's the vibe? What's the ambiance of the room? But also, observing, like, I see there's a bookcase in the back of the room. I see there's Christmas lights on, various things that you could pick up, which are important to sort of note if you're taking notes about what you're receiving. Because if you're doing the kind of thing where you can validate it, that's where the science comes in, where you can actually check how accurate is this information. So if you're doing like a medical scan of a pet, right, you can just look, oh yeah, he had surgery on his leg, or he has a skin rash or whatever. So there's things you can verify, but then the things like the person's emotional state, if it's a photograph of Michael Jackson who's no longer with us, it's harder to verify his emotional state, right? So that information is kind of like, maybe it's accurate, maybe it's not. We don't know for sure. But the really cool thing about it is that, yeah, you can validate a lot of what you're getting, so you can improve your accuracy over time. You can go from 80% accurate as a beginner up to 99% accurate, as a seasoned practitioner, which is amazing.
Wow. That sounds really great, and I think that's exactly what what is so valuable on your work is that you really are bridging this, spiritual, or sometimes it's called esoteric world, with science, because I think this is so important, because most of us they're brought up in the world of Newton. Yeah, if you can't touch it, if you can't feel it and can't measure it, it doesn't exist. Yeah. But now with quantum science, it's already proven that there is much more around us, even if we don't see and can touch it. But it's very important for people to have the scientific proof, and I think that's exactly what you kind of also trying to bring to people. Yeah, you can use it, and then you can cross-check. Yeah, if you're right.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw, and I haven't read the actual paper, but the Nobel Prize in Physics that was just awarded, where it basically says local reality is not real. That is, until you observe it, it's in the waveform. And then, so it's like behind the door to my room, like, doesn't exist until I open the door and view it, which is incredible.
Yes, did you know that I think there are two people who won the Nobel Prize, and one of them is Professor Anton Zeilinger, and he's Austrian.
Okay.
And I'm from Austria as well, so of course he's my
really?
hero.
Oh, cool, excellent. Yeah, I'll have to dive into that, because that's significant. I think probably something to talk, to the broader world about, because basically it says, I've always said for a long time, the material world, the physical that we perceive, is the byproduct of consciousness. And as an entrepreneur, for example, if you have an idea, first it's an idea, and then eventually it becomes the actual reality in front of you. It becomes the course that you launch. But first it was this non-physical thing.
Yes.
And so, but thinking about like everything here, right? Like, what's really a crazy idea is if you go out of your house, if you walk around, everything is a museum. Like, it was all built in the past. It's like all the buildings and the streets and the cars, they're all museum pieces that somebody had an idea and then they built them. So it's like a museum of creativity. It's like a museum of how the physical world was created. And it's, once the car is created, once the building is created, then it exists in our collective awareness, and we keep agreeing that building is there. But that's because we're all holding it in our collective reality creation together, and we could easily decide to change it. And so there's a gravity to collective consciousness in a way. There's this famous experiment where astronauts were practicing psychic abilities, and as they left Earth, their psychic abilities improved because they were escaping the gravitational field of the consciousness here on Earth, which is a fantastic experiment.
Wow, I didn't know about that. But what you're saying in a way is, or put in another question, other angle. If you want to change that what we are perceiving, what would be kind of the minimum share of general consciousness? That we, how many people would need to agree to look at this in a different way?
How many people would it need to change reality? Yeah. And so what's
Like
interesting,
a
I think it's,
percentage, or probably above 50 or something?
I've heard that it's the square root of 1% needed
Ah,
to. So there's this 1,000 monkeys, 100 monkeys. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like once 100 monkeys learn something, then all monkeys know it all across the world. It's like you've seen, things like flight or the printing press or the, whatever invented in multiple places around the world kind of simultaneously. And it's this collective raising in awareness that allows the creativity or the invention to come through. And so that's why I have a brother-in-law. We were just visiting them. We just flew in from California, and he's in law enforcement. And basically, we had this debate about how to end war or how to end the drug problem. And I was like, you have to have enough people shift their consciousness that they don't want to go to war, that they don't want to make money doing drugs. And basically, his viewpoint and the law enforcement in general is like, you just have to like play whack-a-mole, and you have to keep stopping them, and then a new drug cartel rises up or whatever, and it's going to keep happening that way until we no longer want that as a collective, for example.
okay. But most of the time there is a reason behind it. That's how I look at energy work. If something is there is a reason behind it. And if you want to eliminate the symptoms or the result, then you kind of first have to remove the cause of it, or the root. So would you see it like, for just speaking now about this drug issue, do you think there is kind of a collective root why it's still there, and if we remove this one would be removed, then there wouldn't be any drug issue anymore?
I mean, I think that, so it's an easy way to earn money for a lot of these people, more money that you can earn any other way. But what the root of needing to earn money is the root of I'm afraid I'm not going to have enough, or this is the only pathway I have towards survival. And that is a symptom of separation, right? It's like, if you somehow believe that you're not connected to the infinite, then you may have these beliefs that you don't have enough, and you'll do whatever it takes. So there's the consciousness shift is this sort of realization of interbeingness. And we could almost start with language. We could start with the difference between saying, like, you and I, we identify as people, as persons, as individual beings. But what I find fascinating about the Native Americans is that they identify each tree, each rock, each mountain as a person as well. That's not really in our European Western languages. We kind of create this separation. So in your mind, you think, oh, the world is separate from me. And so it's almost just the lens, how we're viewing things, as like in identifying individually, like, you're a separate person and this tree is not a person at all. That shaped our whole thinking. And if we can sort of reimagine how we even just think and speak about who we are to each other, would be a place to start, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I fully agree that kind of, there is probably no real world, because we all have our own world. That's the way, because of all our beliefs and things we have learned, and our thoughts. That's the way we filter everything that is coming to us. At least that's the way I see it. And the only way to change something is also to change your filter, because then it's still the same thing, but you're just looking at it from a different angle, and that's why it has a different meaning and impact for you.
Yeah, the filter is so important. And just before this call, a friend of mine posted on Facebook that she is thinking about ending her life. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is serious. This is pretty intense. And so I like arrived on that call with like a little bit of my attention on this person. And
Oh,
we are cycling teammates. We go riding together, and we have a wonderful time when we're out riding bikes. And she seems like she's enjoying life so much, but there's something about her filter that makes her interpret the amazing things. Like, she has a lot of friends, she has a successful career, she's a Mars rover engineer, you know, she's in exciting projects, right? So her life is really cool, but somehow she's put this filter on where she interprets everything that I see as great is terrible for her. And it's yeah, it really does highlight the importance of the filter to me. And there's actually, you may have heard of this, there's an incredible tool for working with your filter, like one piece at a time, which is Ho'oponopono. It's this Hawaiian forgiveness prayer. And so whatever is bothering you about the world, let's say it's war, or let's just say you don't have enough money, or let's say, you know, my friend who is having trouble with her filter, there's some aspect of my own consciousness, of my own filter, that's impacting that. So what I can do, because it's hard to be like, I'm just going to stop war, because there's so many other people involved in making sure that continues. But you can clean up a certain part of yourself, that is, forgive a certain part of your own psyche that contributes to war. So again, there's something about war, and you'd have to figure out what it is for you individually. Or there's something about hopelessness with my friend that you have to figure out what it is that lives in you that you can clean up and forgive and get rid of. So it's, please forgive me, I'm sorry, thank you, I love you. Not necessarily in that order, in any order. But it's like loving that piece of you that feels like you want to give up, or feels like you want to take over somebody else, or whatever it is. And that's the best thing you can do is actually forgive that within yourself, and you're basically cleaning up the whole of humanity while you do that.
yeah, that's so true. Yeah, I love it, Ho'oponopono too, and using it quite often. And as you said, you know, whatever you use, you know, doing for yourself, healing for yourself, you also heal in a way for your ancestor line. Yeah, it's also for your kids, and also for the whole mankind. And so, and I think that's so. When you heal about something in yourself, you do it also for the others, and when you do it for somebody else, you also, you know, heal something in yourself. And I think that this reciprocity is so powerful when you're aware of it. Yeah. So I like that very much. But no, I just don't wanna dig into it. But you know, are you gonna contact your friend afterwards? And
yeah, so she, I helped her move to a nice new apartment, an amazing brand new apartment, and so some people are going to go over there and check on her. People have called her work.
okay.
Yeah, in the 5 minutes that I was sort of looking online, it appears lots of people are on it, but and I tried to call her, but she didn't pick up. So I'll keep you posted. Hopefully.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, keep the fingers crossed. But it's good that, you know, she has kind of a net, and as you said, she has a lot of friends, so she's not alone. But it's always the way how you perceive it yourself. But maybe it helps her to shift her filter. Wow. Well, thank you very much for sharing.
I want to relay this this great analogy about psychedelics, and I feel like she could benefit from some psychedelics therapy. But this person was describing your mind as a snow-covered hill, and as you go sledding down a hill or skiing down a hill, you go into one track, you know, on a fresh hill. But then as you go over again and again, these are your thoughts, they become more likely to follow the same tracks down. And then something like a psilocybin mushroom will come along and it be a fresh snowfall. So instead of having to follow all the same grooves of thought, yes, especially the ones that make you depressed, then all of a sudden you have a fresh hill to make a new track. And there's neuroplasticity is really benefited from this. But if you're in a thought groove, then you keep creating reality the same way, and you need to get a new thought groove. And the hard way is just being super, right, through meditation, through being really aware of what your thoughts are, observing them, realizing that that's not you, and then changing your thoughts, which is a long term, right? You have to do that for months or years to be effective.
Yes.
Or you can, take some psychedelics and get a fresh coat of snow, and maybe you like kickstart the process a little more smoothly.
So that's kind of the shortcut.
Yes, and these tools are really powerful, so they're not to be messed around with.
Yes.
One of my mentors says, if you want to play with power, you have to have power. And when we're talking about power, that is like, some people have a lot of power to create reality. It's much easier for them to affect the whole, the collective, because they're so impeccable, right? They're in a constant love vibration. They're really connected with the whole, the source. So they can manifest, like, there's saints that can make gems appear in their hands, or flowers, or whatever, or teleport, or any of these things, because they're so connected. So they have much more what we would call personal power to change the whole. And if you don't have, if you're in a state of shame or fear or something like that, you have almost no personal power, because you've just leaked it. You've leaked it all out, and you can't affect reality at all.
Yeah, but I think we're probably, everybody has her or his power, but most of us, yeah, as you said, we don't know how to use it. We are not aware of it, and or it's just drained by vibrating on low emotions. But I think in general, we all kind of have energy. We can work with it, and but most of us are not aware of it.
Yeah, so everyone is connected all the way back. Like, think of a fractal pattern, right? You're connected back to the whole, which we call our seniority, right? How much of your seniority are you aware of? Like, how much of your divinity can you access? And if you've spent your attention focusing on the material world, which already isn't real, then you're not accessing most of that sort of personal power that you have, but you're just not getting.
And just coming back to telepathy, and
Yeah.
do you think having like lots of power, does it help communicate with others? Is it easier for if you have more power?
Well, let's say it's correlated, because I think when you have focus, when you can maintain awareness and not be distracted by thoughts, that's beneficial for using your power, and it's beneficial for telepathy. So when your mind is chattering, let's say you get a piece of telepathic information from somebody, a lot of beginners will start interpreting it based on their thoughts right away. They'll try to place it within a context. And the thing you have to do is you have to separate the information with the interpretation. So you need to just become a really good reporter. Here's the information I'm getting. Here's what I'm feeling, sensing, hearing, seeing, whatever. And that's just the data. That's the raw data you've received. But most people are overlaying their perception of reality on top of the information immediately. And so it becomes hard to split apart what is your thoughts or even your imagination versus the actual information. So that's why, again, validation is important. You can be like, oh, I actually did get that, but then I thought it was something else. So an example was, I was practicing with my son. He's 6 years old, and we were standing in 2 rooms next to each other, sort of talking back and forth. I'm like, hey, I'm holding this object. What is it? And he would sort of say, oh, it's kind of boxy. It's brown. I think it's a cardboard box. And it was actually maybe, a book or something. Okay, well, you got the rectangle shape, you got the hardness of it, but you thought it was going to be a box because it could open. Or he had like a little toy magic wand that he was holding, And I was like, it's round, it's long, it's a cylinder. It's probably a toilet paper roll or a paper towel roll. And he said, no, it's a magic wand. So I had the shape and the length and everything right, but I interpreted it as something that I knew existed. So you get into these little, you take the next logical step, but that's actually going a little bit too far. Yeah, you just want to get as much information as you can, and then you can go and check and see how much of it actually matches.
Yeah, I think, as you said, then you have the raw data, but then really kind of then put the pieces together to really get the right thing. That's then the hard part about it. But at least you have the rough shape, yeah, and that's already great. That's amazing. And you're practicing with your son. Wow.
Yeah, so remote viewing experiments, there's quite a lot of these, which is so it started off started using it in the military. They basically proved telepathy with submarines. At first, they couldn't communicate with deep sea submarines using any electromagnetic spectrum. So they realized telepathy was the best communication, and then they realized, oh, we can view remote targets like military bases and secret files and even archaeological sites, shipwrecks, all these things. And I can't even remember where I was going with this, but basically you'll give them coordinates. Oh, if you want to do it scientifically, you make everyone blind. So you make the viewer blind, you make the person who is analyzing the data blind. So you might have a bunch of envelopes with different targets, like, okay, here's the Eiffel Tower in Paris, France. Here's a military base in Baghdad. Here's Mount Everest, different locations, right? And you just tell them the coordinates. So the viewer doesn't know the coordinates, and then they report what it is. Okay, it's this pointy tower. It seems to be metal. There's a lot of people around, whatever. And then you give that information to the person analyzing it, and they don't know what the target is either, and they don't know the viewer either. So you keep everything separate, and that's how you have really clean data, basically to scientifically prove remote viewing, or scientifically prove telepathy.
But if you do remote viewing, or then you yeah, in a way I already gave my the answer myself, because my question would have been, what you were doing with your son. Are you connecting with telepathying with your son, or are you really connecting with the thing he's holding and trying to communicate with the thing and to get this shape and information from there?
Right. So they're super similar. So I would say telepathy, and we put these labels on, right? It's the same thing, really. It's non-local awareness, like accessing information that's not in your body, that's not local to your physical body. But if he was sending information to me, like if he was holding in his awareness, like I am holding this magic wand, and he was like intentionally sending it to me, and that's what I picked up, then that's telepathy. But if I was just like, okay, let me just go see what he's doing right now. He's playing with Legos. Okay, that's remote viewing, because he's not intentionally sending any information to me, but I'm just kind of viewing the scene.
Exactly, because I was doing like a game with my daughter, and then, at the time she was 10, and we had like a huge cube, and then she was playing with the cube, and then it was behind her back, so it was not in a different room, but I think it doesn't matter. And then we had two games. Yeah, either I looked at the cube and then sent her the information, like telepathy. And then most of the time, this one really worked out. Yeah. And then the other thing was she connected with the cube and tried to see, the numbers on the cube where they were on top. Yeah. And so then we were practicing this kind of, it was a fun game. Yeah.
And you kind of touched on a third third term here, which would be like telekinesis or psychokinesis. And so what your daughter was doing was connecting with the object itself, the consciousness unit that is the physical object. And so when people are, spinning a propeller, right, you put a little propeller in a vacuum and you can spin it with your attention. The trick seems to be connecting with the consciousness, linking with the consciousness of the propeller, and basically seeing yourself spinning and sort of asking, asking permission to connect with the thing. And then again, if you get into the overthinking, it doesn't spin. But if you're just seeing yourself as the propeller and you're seeing yourself spin, then the propeller will spin. And this has been demonstrated whether you're in the room or entirely across the world. People can get these devices to spin, which is amazing.
Well, yeah, it's always fascinating, and she's always so proud when it works, right? It gives such a great feeling. Yeah, I can do that, superpower. And actually it is, and yeah, that kind of brings us also back to the beginning, because when we spoke about telepathy and your course, and you say everybody can use this superpower, and do you think the more and more people are practicing telepathy, it will be kind of, do we still then need like emails and WhatsApp chats, or the future is we're really just kind of communicating on telepathy?
Well, I think it will be, because you lose so much when you translate. If I'm trying to communicate my experience to you and I can only use English, then I'm leaving out so much richness of my experience. I'm leaving out, like my sensory experience, my emotional experience, my inner monologue or dialogue. And so with telepathy, you can kind of just like, boom, here's the whole experience of me in this moment. And then you write back, here's my experience of this right now. And it's much, much richer communication. So I think, yeah, if people become fluent, then one thing it'll do is it'll help us all understand each other, because there's so much emotional intelligence, empathy involved in deeply understanding someone else's experience. Yeah, it'll be great for humanity.
Yes, I think it's, as you pointed out, then you really can't get the whole, you can even get the emotions and everything, and that will be really like, it's then not 3D, it's probably then 5D, yeah, what you can experience, yeah, and you get it kind of direct. But what I wanted to know, especially also with now I lost my thread, but I think it was more that when you use then telepathy, isn't it? Now I got it. In a way, what I realized with the normal communication, as you pointed out, it's always kind of an interpretation, yeah. And you think with telepathy, then there will, there is no room for interpretation anymore because it's so clear.
Yeah, it was like, I only have important conversations in person, because if you try to do them via text or email, there's so much that can get lost, and people can get angry because they read it a different way than you sent it or any of that. So it's better just to sit down with somebody, right? Because that's as rich as you can get right now. But if you sit down with them and you're doing telepathy, that's even more sort of information rich. So yeah, I think it will sort of prevent miscommunication.
That's I think it's so important, because many things probably just appear because they were misinterpreted. Yeah. And me inclusive. Yeah. So we have been talking now about so many other things, but also telepathy. One question I would like to ask you: so how did using telepathy change your life? What was the impact? Is there something different? Are you doing things differently or perceiving information differently?
Well, one recent example would be that after I started, especially doing this course, like I'm practicing it more regularly, animals will come up to me and communicate with me. They will seek me out because they sense somehow that I am open to receiving them. So they'll just come up and stare at me like I'm communicating with you. And a lot of times I'm so dense that I don't get it, or I get a little bit like they're asking me to do some elaborate thing to help them out. And I'm like, I'm sorry, like I can maybe feed you or give you pets or something, but it's like they're asking me to
guys.
like this one, I was staying with my in-laws, my brother and sister-in-law, and they have a dog. They're the third keepers of this animal. He was born on a farm. He went to this guy who now was divorced and then passed on to him, and they're looking for a fourth home. So this animal is experiencing a lot of uncertainty about who he's going to be with, and he sort of bonded with the last person, but now he's not able to be there, and so he's been running away. He's kind of, it's a big problem because he keeps escaping. But it's because he's trying to find his place. So he'll actually escape and run to a horse farm because he was born on a farm, and he finds it familiar to be with this horse. And so I was just trying to get understanding of what this dog wanted. And I basically, was just telling him out loud with spoken word, here's the situation. Here, like, you're probably not going to be staying here, but they're going to take care of you until they find the right placement, but please don't run away because that's really hard for them. And then he basically stopped running away. But he was wanting me to help figure out his whole life situation, which is, so the dog's like, oh, this person can help me. And they come right up and they start chatting with me. But I can't always help, or I can't always understand.
Wow, but this is an amazing story. Yeah, they just wanted somebody to communicate with them, and wow, yeah, I think it's so helpful if you really, of course you can't all the time, but sometimes it's really important for them that somebody stops and take their message on. Yeah, because they probably try to communicate to their owners, and they just don't get it, right? Because they're not paying attention. So you kind of translator for them.
Yeah, and my collaborator, my co-teacher of this course, she's based in Denmark, and she's been teaching this for 25 years. She's kind of world famous, like the Denmark National Zoo calls her in, or the Olympic horse, show jumping. She works with the riders and their horses. She works on a lot of TV shows with the animal actors. And so she's much more proficient. Like, she can just do it super easily. So it's cool to be working with a real master. And she basically had to learn it from her non-verbal autistic son, who couldn't speak, and he was also blind. And so basically she learned from him, and they were sort of teaching each other as he grew up. So he can now see, even though he shouldn't be able to because he's using his second sight. He's able to speak because she was able to give him feedback to learn to speak, even though he didn't have that verbal ability for a long time. So there's a lot to learn from our nonverbal companions, dogs, and nonverbal humans to access this ability.
Wow, that's really impressive. Yeah, so once in the workshop, and when she was like just looking at the picture of a dog, and she could kind of already tell what's the problem, and didn't even have to talk to or see the dog, right? So that was really fascinating. She's really a great gift. But as you said, she already it took some time to develop it up to that state. Yeah, and so it's like learning a language, right? So you also have to practice and kind of use it. So that brings me kind of back to the question, so how did you learn telepathy?
Well, it was so funny. We're 7 years ago, I met my wife, and we were talking about what our sort of worldviews were like when we met each other. And 7 years ago, it was actually 8 years ago, I guess, I had a really interesting experience with a magical tree. This is one of these ancient beings. The tree itself was 800 years old, deep in the jungles of Bali. And I put my hands on the tree, and I had a sort of a telepathic astral projection experience where the tree sort of took my consciousness and transported it to another part of the world to show me this environmental disaster, which is where the Gobi Desert is. Sort of sands are flooding into the forest. The forest is dying. The desert is expanding. It's just turning into this big wasteland because we're not paying attention to the earth. We're not paying attention to the natural world, Mother Gaia. And so it was kind of, this tree was giving me a mission. The mission was related to just getting people back out into nature, to be more present with nature and the elements. But I took it a little bit different. You know, I did that. I did my mission, but I also started investigating how did a tree do telepathy with me? How did a tree transport my consciousness or project my consciousness? How does this all work? So that's when I really started digging into research, because before that, I would say that I was a materialist because I was trained as a microbiologist, as a virologist. And like so many people, the textbooks say, you know, here's the Newtonian Cartesian model of the world. And I was like, yep, that sounds right. That's what I observe. But there's so much more to it. And it does take a little bit of digging, a bit of unlearning to really understand the full picture.
Okay, so this experience kind of made you, first of all, you experienced that it's possible, and then you kind of figured out how did it happen, and then like the third step would have been the how can I use it? Was this kind of the process, or?
Yeah, you know, the point is not the dramatic. The point is not telepathy or levitation or teleportation or any of that stuff. That's kind of a byproduct of awareness, but it's also a very exciting, you know, in marketing, you say, okay, here's this dramatic, like Tony Robbins, right? He has people walk across fire in his things. And this is very dramatic. Like people go and talk, like I walked across fire, and then, you know, it's a dramatic demonstration of what's possible. And so superpowers serve that purpose in a way. They're kind of this flashy thing, like, hey, if you expand your awareness, you can levitate. Oh, cool. But that's just kind of a byproduct. That's not the point of it all. The point is like realizing how connected we are, and you know, understanding the nature of the universe and our role within it. But yeah, that's kind of, you know, I've had a lot of remarkable experiences that helped me along the path. As soon as I said, yeah, I want to learn this stuff, as I'm open to it, I've had so many amazing mentors, including you, you know, conversations with, like our last conversation, we were talking about what is the nature of energy. And I think I have something to add to that now. But yeah, I've at this point, I've done 67 different healing modalities or metaphysical practices. My goal is to get to 100 and just really experience it. So from Tai Chi to Qigong to breath work to psychedelics to dream work to plant medicine, you know, whatever it might be. I like to try it all. I like to experiment with it all and see what works. Because I also want to help people, right? So I'm saying, okay, I have a lot of business clients, so I'm like assigning them, you know, you're going to learn this practice and it's going to help you, or here's how we're going to grow your business by doing this other practice. So really just applying everything that I'm learning.
Okay, so a couple of questions to this one, yeah. So, you know, for like you're saying you're trying to learn all these modalities, you know, you're learning them or kind of testing them, or that somebody does it on you?
Yeah, some of them I just do like one experience just to see what it's like, and some of them I will incorporate into my daily practice. So dream work, lucid dreaming and dream interpretation, and using dream time as a means to get things done, like to make major decisions or to have creative inspiration or to find customers or whatever it may be. I use dream time every night. So that's one of the cornerstones. I'm doing breath work and meditation, some form of meditation, almost every day. For a business launch, I'm making a grid. I'm making a physical crystal grid to lock in the consciousness of that new business venture. So some of these have become a practice, and some of them, it's like, it's great that I've learned them, but I don't know if I'll go back and use them again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see the same, and you know, my experience is that there is no one energy work, because there are, you know, there's so, probably 1,000 different possibilities. You can achieve the same result. And you can use different techniques. And I think for most of our energy workers, it's what you experience. Most of us, they are so curious. You always try to learn new things and experiencing, and then whatever fits for you, you incorporate in your own techniques. You improve them and use them, and then it's just your special way. And that's what I think is so important to know. There is no one way, but everybody has her or his own way to use it. And that's so special about it. And that's what I so love about energy work, because it's very unique and individual.
Yeah, you're making me think of, so I used to be a professional cyclist, and a lot of the, before I got into this work, I was optimizing the physical performance side of things, how to train, how to eat, how to recover properly, how to get stronger, all of these things. So I had a performance mindset. And so one of the early experiments I did was how I could use Reiki in order to improve sports performance. So I did this, basically, I was doing Reiki on myself before and after every workout for a month. And I was tracking my performance gains just as like a personal experiment, right? So I'm always running these personal experiments. The result was basically, I didn't notice any sort of measurable output gains. Like I wasn't that out any more than expected, but my recovery, my sleep was much better. My rest and recovery seemed to go a lot more smoothly. And so that's something I wouldn't have known necessarily without running the experiment. But it's not really, because I have pretty good sleep anyway. So it's like, if I ever need to make sure I have good sleep, then I'll do that. But it's not super practical for me. So I like have this thing I could use, but I don't.
Okay, I see the point. But in a way, you're encouraging that really, people listening to this podcast, that they kind of really experiment a little bit on their on their own, figure out, does it do me any good? Does it increase my productivity, or do I achieve the results I want to achieve? And if it doesn't, maybe it was just not the right technique. It doesn't say that the energy work doesn't work, but then there are like 1,000 other possibilities you can try out, and then one of or two of them, they may lead you to achieve your results.
Yeah, and some are so dramatic, and some are very subtle, right? It's like you really have to be able to notice the subtle differences. Like you have to be paying attention. You have to be sometimes journaling, keeping like a laboratory notebook, like I do. So this one recently. This guy I interviewed, he had invented this device, which is basically a scalar energy-based device, which is like the prior to electromagnetism. There's scalar, that's what he calls it, but it's basically a way of using a physical device connected with consciousness to impact the material world. So he can basically dematerialize things and materialize things. So he can dematerialize HIV, for example. He's cured 4,000 people in a study in India of HIV in essentially overnight, completely removed the virus from their system because he deconstructed it back to its atomic elements, carbon, oxygen, whatever. And he can materialize things like vitamins and hormones to keep your body in balance. So I just tested out his technology in the last few weeks. And it was so subtle, but it was like every single day, I was like, this was a really good day. Everything went right today. And if I wasn't paying attention, I would just think, wow, I feel great. But during the 15-day trial, I can note the difference, right? It's like the difference between 100% of things going right and 95% of things going right. But when you have a string of days where everything goes right for many days in a row, it's like, oh, is this that thing? But it's super subtle in a lot of ways.
Wow, this is amazing. So you're planning on continuing?
Yeah, I may. There's no, like there was no particular result I got from it, but yeah, everything go your way feels amazing. So it could be worth, so you have to pay for a subscription, right? To keep going using his device.
Okay. I'm definitely gonna check it out. Yeah. So I just, we spoke, so it was about so many things, but also, the goal was telepathy, but it was amazing. So if people want to know more about or learn it, is there a new course in the pipeline they can sign up, or what are your plans for this?
Yeah, we'll be teaching the second round of this course. So we deliver it live. So there's live training with Dita and I. That'll be in March and April of 23. So, but you can go and sign up now before the price goes up. And yeah, all 28 people in the course currently have experienced telepathy, some, dramatic, some bits in here and there, but that's expected, right? As any skill, musical skill, athletic skill, the population is sort of this standard distribution of natural talent, right? But I'm not a talented athlete, but I became a pro athlete because I practiced at it a lot. So it's one of these things, like you can train wherever you start from, you can train your ability to be world-class in this. So yeah, and then you mentioned my show, the Derek Loudermilk Show, but basically you can find everything on my website, derekloudermilk.com.
Yeah, definitely, link it, put the links in the show notes, and also the link to the course. And then before we wrap up, I have one last question I always ask in my show, and this is, what gives you energy?
What gives me energy? Lots of things give me energy. Two
If there's one
things that are
thing
coming up.
Sorry?
Two things that are coming to mind.
Okay.
Storytelling with my kids. We make up stories, and that's always given me a lot of energy, acting and making up stories. But I think now that I'm saying it, I think there's a reason, which creativity is just sort of a form of channeling. But creativity is a form of connecting you to source, right? It's connecting you to your hierarchy of power, right? You're accessing more of your personal power. So anything creative, I think, would give a human energy. The other thing that I've been doing a lot recently is just standing barefoot, almost nude in the sun every day. And that seems to just give me, I would naturally be in the sun from playing sports outside, but having it as a practice where I'm acknowledging the sun, I'm acknowledging the wind, the air, the earth, the elements, and just really being connected, bare feet on the ground, grounding, full sun, every day has been really amazing for me.
Wow, that sounds very powerful. Yeah, I always try to connect to the sun every day, because I think it's not only like power being used photovoltaics to produce electric energy, but we can also, increase and expand our own energy, and that's why I think it's very powerful. But thank you very much for sharing. Yeah, that definitely test it out. So I was just, when you started, you stand barefooted, I was expecting now you're saying in the snow or something like this.
If it has to be in the snow, then it will. But this morning, right, it was about freezing outside, so it gets harder in the winter for sure.
Okay, so you're not in like California or Bali, so there are some seasons that there's some cold in your place as well, right? Just to make sure nobody has an excuse, right?
Yeah, and I do the Wim Hof thing. I take cold showers. So if you're used to taking cold showers, then standing out in the snow is really no big deal.
Yes, I'm taking cold showers as well. I think it's not only refreshing, you really get kind of this energy boost right in the morning, and then you're really awake. Yeah. And then you're just ready for the day. I think it's always very, very powerful. Yeah. So thank you, Derek, for all your time, and also for sharing your insights, and it was so much fun talking to you. could continue for hours, but you have other business to do. I know you have to learn new skills and modalities and travel other countries. So there are so many things on your bucket list, right? So I will keep you from there, and I really appreciate our interview. And then put all the links in the show notes, and people can reach out to you when they're interested in the telepathy course. I can only recommend it. It's really fascinating.
Great. Cornelia, always a pleasure to spend time with you. Good to see you.
Yeah, see you soon, right?
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.